welcome everybody to First Down and Life. It's our first podcast together. I'm Todd Stevens. This is Jeff Richey. Brian Pickrell's over there hiding from us a little bit, helping us out. How you doing, Brian?
Hey, doing good, guys.
And this is gonna be our first podcast. The reason we're gonna call it First Down in Life is because we're gonna talk about all things coaching, all aspects of coaching, and the fact that it does play a heavy role in all aspects of life.
In life in general.
I'm still getting coached. I told you the other day, I feel like you're still coaching me, and
vice versa.
And it never stops. We never stop coaching somebody, and we never stop getting coached ourselves. So we're going to start tonight, or I wanted to start tonight, by just letting you get to know us. And I wanted Jeff's story to be able to get out and let you all hear about Jeff and kind of what makes a coach, what kind of the aura or the epicenter of what makes a coach, and just enjoy and have a good time listening to somebody explain how they got to where they're at. So obviously, it goes without saying, I'm very proud to call Jeff Richey one of my coaches, and it's my honor and privilege to be able to talk to you. So, Jeff, before we get started, I got a couple of things to ask you. If the game is tied, you're on the 50-yard line, 3 minutes on the clock, you have the ball, and it's 4th down and 1. What do you do?
Kind of got to know what the flow of the game is, but my instant response would be I'd like to get those linemen down in a wedge position and blow the defensive lineman off the ball, and my quarterback get as low as he can, and let's get that yard the old-fashioned way and let them know what we're about. That would be what I would want.
So wedge blocking a quarterback sneak.
That's what I would want.
Okay. I can't argue with that. I didn't want to hear I'm going to punt it. That's what I didn't want to hear.
Hey, we may throw a screen or something to get booed, but we're at least going to do that.
All right. 3rd down and 8. The coach's nightmare. 3rd down and 8.
Behind the chains.
What is your go-to play?
I like on 3rd and 8. Depends on if you've been able to establish any type of run game. But I like a layered route, like something with a shallow crossing route with a dig in behind it, with a shoot route. That was kind of in our shallow series. I think that can get you 5 to 10 to 15. 3rd and 8, those you don't. The old saying, things that don't last long are dogs that chase cars and pro golfers that putt for pars. High school football coaches and 3rd and 8s ain't going to be around very long at the time either.
Exactly. 3rd and 8. Well, Jeff, tell me about growing up. Tell me what made Jeff into Jeff. Tell me about growing up.
I was like anybody else that's probably watching this, and I grew up here. I guess the only thing that made my life
here, meaning Barron County?
In Barron County, Glasgow area. I moved a lot. I was born here, started my schooling at Eastern Elementary. But the thing that I have on all of y'all, most of y'all, is I went to like 7 or 8 different schools before I got to high school. We were very mobile. We would buy homes, fix homes up, and move. So the thing that was kind of a weakness for me was kind of moving into so many schools, but it was also a strength because I got to meet a lot of people that become lifelong friends.
Right.
So it's kind of a,
right.
Went to Glasgow and Barron County schools. So.
Right. Best Christmas present you ever got?
Motorcycle. I'll never.
What size was it?
It was a 125. But I was only like 10 or 11. I wasn't ready for it. I probably needed an 80. But my sister and I would get up and start.
Did you get a 2-stroke 120?
No, it was a 4-stroke. Back in the day, it had mirrors and stuff. But I didn't care. It was a new shiny motorcycle. I was wanting a new YZ80. That was a motocrosser from way back. And I looked down the hallway and we saw this glow, and we could have sworn Santa was there. And when I peeked down there, my sister got one of those inchworm things, and we got some kind of little game you play. And then there was that motorcycle. I was up at 1:30, didn't go back to bed.
Did you ride it?
Yeah, I went outside in the dark riding it. Fell over. I think I broke a mirror before the sun up.
Of course. Favorite cereal?
Count Chocula, by far.
Count Chocula.
Yeah, I still eat Count. Can't wait till fall to get me like 8 or 10 boxes. My endocrinologist doesn't like it because of my sugar, but I'll get a box of Honey Nut Cheerios and put them up in the cabinet or some kind of Raisin Bran, and I'll put the insert down in those boxes, and then when my wife's not looking, I'll sneak some Count Chocula in there. So that's my weakness is Count Chocula.
Go-to junk food.
Oh, mercy. I like a good cold chocolate milk with a iced honey bun. It's probably my favorite, but if I really got nasty, I'd eat about a whole row of Oreos with the black stuff and double stuffs. And that's it.
Double stuffed. Favorite, what, as a child, what got you into sports? Well, not necessarily football, but what was that one thing that said, I've got to do that? I want to
spend a lot of time like most kids do. We didn't have any technology. We didn't have a lot. And so going out and throwing a ball against a hard wall and then drawing a spot on the wall and throwing it, seeing how far I could throw a football. And then I ended up getting a bunch of Nerf footballs, see how far I could punt them and kick them. And then I have my own punt, pass, and kick competitions. And then when I found out they had those down at Gorn Park, well, I couldn't sleep to get excited for pass, dribble, shoot, and punt, pass, and kick. And I just dreamed and find out Andy Reid, coaching the Super Bowl, won the punt, pass, and kick. He was a little chubby kid that could throw it 55 yards when he was 12. So
I didn't know.
And became a lineman, yeah. And so that's how I got started. And I just had a ball in my hand constantly, and I couldn't get away from it. And I realized I had a good arm. Very slow, but had a good arm.
So your favorite sport, let's say as a little leaguer, as an elementary age kid, your favorite sport?
Played them all. But they had that silly points thing or whatever, and they said, hey, looks like a tackle or guard. And in fourth grade, my first introduction to football was as a guard.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And it was bad enough I had to wear Husky.
I was number 66.
I'll never forget going up at Bernard's up there with Berkey or whoever was up there, and they'd say, he looks like a Husky. Take him to the back. And, of course, they may as well just yell, this is a fat, chubby kid, you know.
Yeah.
And but they put me on the line. But in basketball, I could shoot it. I could handle the basketball. And I could throw. And then in baseball, oh, man, I could throw the baseball. Mm-hmm. But and as I progressed, then I switched to quarterback when I got a little slimmer. Maybe got out of the Huskies, you know. But no, and listen, I'm going to look in the camera. Nothing wrong with a good chunky kid. We love our linemen. We love them. But when you got a kid that wants to be quarterback, Brian.
Jared Lorenzo.
Yeah. He was a great one.
Yeah.
But, that's typical. And I guess I could just take this and ask you the same question. But you had Troy and other, family members. I was kind of by myself. My sister was 6 years younger, and I didn't have a lot of kids around me where we lived. And I just spent a lot of time on dirt bikes and throwing ball.
Right. I did the same thing. We grew up across from some storage buildings, and they were concrete block buildings. And I would go over there and take a piece of chalk and outline one, like 2 blocks, and that would be my strike zone.
Yep.
And I would sit there with one of those hard rubber baseball, like a fake baseball, and I would sit there with my dad's first baseman's mitt and just sit there on the mound playing against the New York Mets in the World Series.
We were all dreamers.
And I would pound that thing for hours until my mom made me come in. Of course, I always won.
Sure.
It was nearly a perfect game
That's
every
right.
time I went out.
We never lost at that. But that's, and if I could have a wish for kids today, it would be put your devices up and go put on your little plastic $2.99 helmet with the little 2-piece plastic. I had a Kansas City Chiefs and a little set of plastic shoulder, and I'd run and slam into the swing sets and make my sister try to tackle me, and I'd break away. And, I wish kids could really experience that. And that was good times. Didn't even know it.
I played in my yard, and I didn't have a bunch of friends over to be able to play with either where we live. So I had a red helmet, had a gray face mask, one of the little plastic ones. If you had to pull the face mask up so you looked like a real football player. Yeah. And we were surrounded by a field that was bush hog, so it was all just brush, wow, basically. But it wasn't brush; it didn't have briars in it.
Right.
So I would run sweep right or a dive or something like that, and I would run right into that brush, which was taller than me as a little kid, and try to prove that I could
bust through.
Yeah.
Or break it into the end zone.
So that's
But don't you miss, like when I lived down in Green Valley across from Garrett's Grocery, I'll never forget Debbie Metter's dad made us some bases out of sawdust, burlap, old feed bags, and we had the best ball games you've ever seen played down there in Green Valley. Yeah. And I did, I had a wonderful, even though I moved around a lot, there was always a bunch of kids to play and to have fun. Outside play. And when it's getting dark, it was time to go home.
And the only time we weren't outside if it was lightning.
That's right.
We played in the rain. That just made it
better.
Funner. Yeah.
Funner.
Funner. So that was youth. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're a 3-sport guy as a youth, or let's say pre-middle school. So in middle school, was there any transition to a selected sport?
Well, you can kind of tell in basketball when there's one ball and about 30 kids wanting on the court, and you'll just realize there's people better than you. And so I zeroed in on baseball and football. And I played basketball my freshman year, and that was it because we had like 32, and I wasn't going to be good enough to be on the Barron County. A 5'10", 9 kid, I could shoot, but that's a dime a dozen back then. So to answer your question, I focused in. I started varsity as a freshman on a baseball team. All 4 years I pitched and was shortstop, third baseman. And football, man, what wonderful memories. Those old 2-a-days, drinking out of a water hose, salt tablets, and of
course.
And I went in as a linebacker, quarterback, and wanted to be linebacker and just drill people. Well, they saw I could throw the ball, so immediately, we don't want him to get hurt. Yeah, he's going to be a quarterback. Well, then I played some receiver and kicker. So my high school was baseball and football, and then we had what's called off season back in the day. Where now it's just year-round, AAU, travel.
It's a foreign concept.
It's a foreign concept to these kids, along with a thing called play, with a thing called a stick.
And outside.
Yeah. But, so that was the best of times.
Yeah.
I really think so.
Going back to youth, tell me about your Little League coach that, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, or tell me about your middle school era coach. Some coaches that we're all going to have coaches that we say, I didn't enjoy that experience as much as I enjoyed the other experience. So tell me some positives and negatives, things you learned about coaching.
I'm blessed. Even when I was wearing Huskies and playing guard, Holland Strange and Abner Stilts, they coached the Packers in the Glasgow League, and I was just I love going down there to practice. And, when I look back,
he's a legend.
Yeah, I talked to Scotty Jones and my friend Mike Elmore, and we talk about playing in Little League. And you go up on any given Little League night, and you see David Bailey and Todd Childress, Robert Hayes, and oh my goodness, we had guys that could play the game of football. And then Barron County started its own Little League program, I believe my 6th grade year. And since I lived in the county, I was in the very first ever Barron County Little League football.
Really?
Played for the Falcons.
What year was that?
Oh, mercy. I have no idea. 76, 77. I graduated in 83. I'm old. But I had a good coach named Tony Chastain. He moved in here from out of town. And, buddy, he coached me up, let me be quarterback. And then Bud Terry in middle school, Jerry Harvey and all those guys. And then, of course, I went into high school, Coach Eubank, Billy Lindsay. I've always had good coaching. I may not have been the best player. Coach Lindsay would always say, you may not be the best player I've ever had, and I might not be the best coach you'll ever have, but all we got's each other. And so that's kind of the way we approached it, you know. Yeah. But we were blessed with what we had.
But somebody had to have planted a seed that said, what was it? Can you take me back? Can you take us back? And say that was the moment where a seed was planted that, hey, I think I want to be a coach someday.
I looked at that, and I'm going to tell you where it was. I didn't want to be a coach while I was playing. I was like every other kid, Brian. I wanted to play quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Roger Staubach is still today my hero. They don't make them like Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson, all those guys. Then I said, I'd like to play for the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team. I want to pitch for the Cardinals. That's my team. And so Billy Lindsay and all those guys that coached me gave me a passion and a love to go play college baseball at Lindsay. And now I'm going to go back to answer your question. I had a friend named Greg Sweeney that graduated from Warren East. And we played some ball out in the front lawn of the campus there. So we graduate, 85, it's a junior college. I end up at Western. And just one day I'm walking across campus near the Downing Center, and I hear somebody go, "Richey." And I turn around, it's Greg Sweeney. And he said, "Man, I never thought I'd see you again." And we got to talking. He said, "Hey, I need some help. I'm going to be coaching the Vikings at Bristow in the Warren County Youth Football League. Would you come help me with my offense?" Well, I was like, I can't coach. I could play a little bit. I can't coach. And so I said, yeah, I'll come out and see what's up. Well, I show up, and he's taking the defense because he's a big, rock-solid linebacker from East. And I took the quarterbacks, receivers, and we ran play. And I had a good time. I said, I'll do it for you. And that is when the passion started, because I saw how hard my coaches worked for very little pay.
Yes.
And I didn't want to go down that. I'm way in the hole. Yeah. But we don't do it for pay. But that's the moment when we coached and played some of those good Bowling Green teams. And I said, I kind of like this. And to fast forward, so I don't take 3 hours here, I had a really nice job because I'm into art. I worked at Wacky Sign Company. And I'll never forget, he paid me a good salary to do billboards and all the artwork in Bowling Green that Wacky did. And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to teach art, and I want to coach." He said, "Well, why don't you stay here with me? I'll give you a big raise, and you can coach Little League." I said, "Leo," I said, "I appreciate the offer." I said, "But I really want to go and coach kids." Yeah. And he made fun of me on what I was going to be starting out, and I don't care to tell anybody. Look, and I made $15,000 and that's coaching and everything. And for a whole year, I couldn't even barely keep my lights on. It was so low of pay, but I wouldn't take anything for that because I started in Bluegrass Middle School, their first ever football team. I was there and at North Hardin as a baseball coach, and I've never looked back since 89, 90.
Right. So, the Little League Vikings in Bowling Green.
Bristow Elementary lit the spark. It's
kind of where you got
Greg Sweeney. Yeah. I need to call him and thank him because I honestly had no desire to coach. Didn't even really know what I was going to do.
Tell me about your high school career, baseball and football. Yeah, some good memories or a key game that really... Where you really grabbed the tiger by the tail. Yeah. Slayed the dragon.
I was never what I would call a great athlete. I just think I was a kid that gave all that I had, and I overcame what limitations I had physically. And as I said earlier, and I gave Billy a lot of compliments, but he also would say stuff in the paper like, "Well, Jeff Richey's not very tall, but he makes up by not being very fast either." He would give us those double-handed, backhanded comments. So, Billy, if you're listening, yeah. But it was all in just fun because it was true. I was 5'0" 100 and nothing.
You don't have to concern yourself with Billy telling the truth.
Well, yeah. It's just what it is. But he also allowed me a chance to walk in there as a freshman and be on the mound pitching high school baseball. He also taught me how to throw a football and how to catch it. And I started varsity football at Barron County as a sophomore quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I've been blessed. I kicked a field goal. You asked me a highlight. We're playing Warren Central, and it was 0-0. 3 seconds to go, I kicked like a 30-some yard field goal, and we won 3-0. And
3-0.
Yeah, and I was swamped. I was a big man on camp, And then the very next week, I think we played Edmonson County, and I missed 3 extra points like Dallas's kicker, and everybody's get him out of here.
I think you missed 5 or something in the postseason.
But anyway, I've seen it from both sides.
So, all right, would you say in high school were you more? I mean, your heart, was it in football? Was it in baseball? Or is that an answerable question?
As I started high school, it was equal. But because I really found so much more success in baseball, my passion turned to baseball. Now, I love football. Mm-hmm. Or I had a great affection for football. But baseball was natural. I really had to work at football to sell those linemen and stuff, and it was hard work. But baseball.
If we remember, I'd like to ask you after a while, why would you pick to coach football over baseball? So that'd be a good question.
Let's finish that one because I have a great answer for that.
So you're playing football in high school. You're playing baseball in high school. There's an off season separating the two. Coaching in high school, you had good experiences with your coach at baseball and football both. So the fire wasn't lit yet. It was after.
I thought my coaches were cool, and I thought they had nice cars and stuff. And some of them didn't. But you learn to appreciate your coaches.
Your go-to pitch when you're in trouble? Curveball. Your favorite route, was it down the seam? Was it down the sideline?
We ran a bootleg play. And,
so you like to be mobile?
West, 80 bootleg off 31 dive. And we'd fake, and I'd roll out the guardman, I'd drill him, or else I had an over route.
So you like to be mobile?
Well, but what I really like to do was throw it 60 yards down the field and show my arm.
Yeah, of course.
But what I didn't want to do...
Do all quarterbacks, is that what all quarterbacks want?
All quarterbacks want to throw a tight spiral that nose dives perfectly into the outstretched arms.
But
I didn't want to run because I didn't want to show my weakness. I didn't want to get outside the pocket.
The Husky? You didn't want to show off the Husky?
The Packers' 4th grade lineman is now trying to waddle out and play quarterback.
So explain this then. If you're wanting to go down the field all the time, is it a rule that when a quarterback becomes a coach, automatically he wants to throw the freaking ball all the way down the field the whole game?
The answer is people will say.
Does it affect it?
Okay, but
be honest now.
People
are watching. They're going to hear this.
My middle school days, when I was the first middle school football coach at Barron County. We ran the rock. We would just pulverize you and just get after it. And then we threw for sport just to show you we can. And then when we was up, we'd throw it. In high school, I shied away from that and decided I had a quarterback and some decent kids with hands. So we tried to do that game. Mm-hmm. And the hardest thing I learned is you don't recruit and sign kids to play for you like they do in college or pro. You got to build your system around the kids that play for you.
Amen.
And I didn't do a very good job of that at the high school level in years 2 and somewhat in 3. I think I did the first year, but that's the hardest part, to answer you fairly. Yeah, I like throwing the ball, but I also like running it down your throat and counter, misdirection, G-scheme stuff. I love that.
So it's good to have a quarterback that's got a little bit of linebacker in him too.
Yes.
I've always felt that way myself.
Because
football can still only be played one way, and that is downhill.
And low man wins, and it's a collision sport, not a contact sport.
We're getting ready to watch the Super Bowl here in a couple of weeks.
And the Eagles are going to win.
And those big, you think so?
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and throw that at you just because they're physical. Mm-hmm. That is a physical football team.
They are.
And so unless Mahomes just does something crazy good, I just think anyway, we're getting off topic here. But
So
set the record straight. For all the people that would go, run the ball, Richey. I did at certain points, and then I got away from it.
So tell me about college.
College, I'm going to say it again. I was too young. Dennis Smith may have saved my life. And the reason I say that.
Dennis Smith.
Yeah, I'm going to explain him. I was walking through the halls of Barron County High School late in the spring, getting ready to graduate. And all my friends were heading off to the Army, military. They were going to work at Donnelly's, Eaton, SK, wherever the jobs were, going to the farm. They were going to college. They had. I was lost as an Easter egg. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I guess I was just going to. I don't know what I was going to do. And I'll remember this like it happened this morning. I walked through the gym into the main hallway in front of the office, and this guy was standing there. It said Lindsey Wilson College. He goes, "Hey, how are you? I'm Dennis Smith." He goes, "What you going to do when you graduate?" I said, "I have no idea." And it was like 3 or 4 weeks away. And he got to talking to me, and he extended an offer to come up and try out for a baseball team. He introduced me to people up there, and I just rolled the dice and rolled into Lindsay, and I said, I'll at least give them 2 years. And at that point, I still didn't know. I was majoring in commercial art at the time. Brian, you'd love that. I wanted to go be a fancy designer and, do all kinds of art. I can't believe you ain't made the comment yet. An art teacher, football coach. I think there's 2 of us in the world. Okay, yeah. But that was it. Dennis kind of saved me from my own self, because I don't know what I'd have done. May have joined a motorcycle gang or tried to be a pro surfer.
I don't know the proper terminology here, so this is going to sound probably crazy. Conventional, is there a such word as conventional art or abstract art?
No.
Because I'm not a fan of abstract.
I was more into graphic design. Way too abstract
for me.
I was wanting to be into graphic design and soup can labels, potato chip. But I wanted to take the printed text and make beautiful art that people would buy in packaging and design. Mm-hmm. And I had offers to go down and look at the Savannah School of Art and Design, SCAD. Mm-hmm. Had friends that had connection to Pratt Institute in New York City. So there were some big name institutions, and once again, lost as an Easter egg. Yeah. Ended up at Lindsey Wilson playing baseball in a dorm with no heat, no air.
Yeah. So before we get out of childhood or out of youth, we've already kind of got into college. So obviously you played baseball for Lindsey Wilson, played pitcher, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. At some point, the greatest, if we're talking about coaching, then the power of a coach, I mean, he's got you right where he wants you, because you're sweating, you're hurt, you're injured, but so's everybody else, but you're trying to earn that spot. You're trying to keep that spot. You want to succeed. You want to please that coach.
I still didn't have that at the point. I wanted to be a yes, sir, no, sir, a respectful person. But I still had no desire to coach, even at this point. And it didn't happen until, like I told you, when I went, after I left Lindsay, after a 2-year junior college stint, to go to Western. And then, quite honestly, it didn't hit me until I was hired by David Reed to come and be the art teacher at Bluegrass Middle School in Elizabethtown, Radcliffe, and to be their first football coach. And my football field is where John Hardin High School is built right now.
Really?
We had a little old football field up on the hill with the Bluegrass Colts. And, buddy, we were proud and loud. And that, I'm jumping ahead of the game, but my first year is when it hit me, that I realized I may not be good or great at it, but I am having an impact on some children. Mm-hmm. I may be the absent father they don't have at home.
Okay, so let's talk about something that I've always been interested in, and I'll ask you, and you tell me where you stand on this. And this is really odd to me, so I don't know a good way to phrase it than just to shoot from the hip. So, like, I became a Christian at 13 years old in middle school, late middle, 7th grade. Mm-hmm. I became a Christian. I was saved at my home when I was 13 years old. And I can remember, obviously, I can remember people preaching. I can remember Sunday school teachers talking to me. I remember my mom and dad talking to me about being a Christian. And that's always, for the most part, where we live, in the area we're from, that's something that's very important to everybody is faith or family, faith, other things. It's sad to see where culture's going now, but faith has always been very important. And obviously, it's terribly important to me. It's the most important thing in life. But this is the interesting thing I want to ask you about. Brian, you feel free to chime in too. I can remember more sentences, catchphrases, commands, or strength that was preached to me from a coach than I can my pastor. And granted that faith is the most important thing in my life. So at 13, I become a Christian, yet the coach's words, that it had that much of an impact. Now, it may not impact every other kid like that, but it really, all my coaches had such an impact on me because they were, I don't know if it's because they were people I could look at and talk to, and I want them to be proud of me. I wanted to earn whatever. But I can remember more sentences and conversations and words from a coach than I could my pastor. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying that's my experience. And can you speak to that in any way? The power of a coach.
Okay.
The influence.
People's view of God. Do you view God as your BFF, your best friend? Do you view God as the sovereign God of the universe that you owe, reverence? He's holy. So I guess I was saved in elementary school. The preacher was preaching a sermon, and I felt, oh my goodness, I've been listening to this stuff, and now I'm at the age of accountability where I know, I've got to make a decision. And I, it's one of those things I kept gripping. And so I stepped out. And once I stepped into the aisle, my feet just went straight to the altar. Okay. And then 2 more people came that night. And so I remember 3 of us got saved at First Real Baptist Church and baptized together. Now, to go back to what you're saying, my grandpa was a preacher. I had great preachers down there. I revered people from a distance, and I was like, yes, sir, no, sir, and whatever you say, sir. And I did the same way with my coaches. I was afraid to get too close to any of them because I felt like they were at a higher level on the hierarchy. I revered people. And so to answer your question, yes, the preachers, the coaches, they impacted me greatly. Greatly.
So is it safe to say, obviously the most important thing in my life is faith. However, as a young boy growing up to becoming a man, coaching had, I guess, there's more things that I remember in my life from a coach than I do a pastor. And I had a wonderful,
there's a reason
great
for that.
pastor.
In my reasoning for it, you go into a holy place of worship and you get on a football field and it's, let's knock somebody off their perch here to gain first day, and so it was kind of a different way of being a man. You have to release yourself in different ways and learn from different ways.
Brian, I wish you were sitting behind a microphone so you could interject in this.
But
do you see where we're coming from here? It's kind of hard to.
But I'm going to say something else. Did you learn how to want to cut your hair or what kind of clothes you want? Because maybe a coach had a cool haircut or a cool car, and then you started, hey, maybe someday I could have that. And so, that's how coaches affect kids. And
so they've got to be very cautious how they coach because, yes, they can have a great positive impact, but they can also be a very negative impact, negative influence as well.
And if I have a regret, I would look in the camera and any kid I've coached, I loved every kid I coached. Some were harder to get through. They were tough nuts to crack. But I never wanted a kid to feel like I had given up on them. but because of the nature of the game, some kids are going to get more reps. And because as you progress to high school, it's different than Little League.
Yeah.
And I know some parents, I've heard them say, well, they shouldn't even keep score. And, okay, well, maybe in the near future we won't keep score. But when you're playing a game and there are winners and losers just like they are in life, sometimes it's tough. And but I always try to treat it like I would tell my wife, I'd say, I want those kids to know I love them, but I want them to know I'm going to push them, and I'm not going to accept mediocrity. Mm-hmm. You know, good, better, best, never rest, to good be better and better be best. I said, you're the man in the mirror. You know, there's who you're competing against. Right. And nothing is worse than a missed opportunity if somebody, you know, talent's a dime a dozen. I've coached a lot of talented kids, but what did you do with your talent? Mm-hmm. And so with that, I was always, Brian, I was on the edge of trying to push kids without breaking kids.
Let me tell you this. Okay. The funnest team, and that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. I have had, every year I've coached has been, I've loved it. But the funnest team I coached, they weren't very talented at all.
Oh, yeah.
But I've always felt like as a coach, it's my obligation, it's my job to get the very best out of every single one of them, including the assistant coaches or my head coach, if I'm assistant coach, is get the very best I can get out of it. And that team, one time, I feel like I got their very best.
Yes.
Now, you didn't see that in the win column, but they were an absolute pleasure.
Well, we're just in a society that only judges you by wins and losses. And we could, Brian, I mean, I don't want to keep you here at midnight, but we could tell story after story on behind the scenes victories. And then I would always tell my teachers while I was principal, and I'm sure you may ask me this later, but I did teach for 14 years in art at the middle school and high school level. And I finally realized, hey, I would like to lead a school. So when I became a principal, I would always tell my teachers at the beginning of the year, begin again. It's a new year. We've got new kids. I said, don't teach the same year 27 times. Reinvent yourself every year. And let's challenge yourself to find new grass here. Mm-hmm. And I said, the parents are sending us their very best that they have to send us. I said, every one of you can love the kids that smell good and have bows in their hair and they're pretty and all that. I said, how do you treat the child that's probably not getting much love? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that worked in my day job and then into coaching. I realized that the parents were sending me the best athletes they possibly had. Now, did I want somebody who could run a 4.4 and a 6.7 X and Z receiver to throw it? Yeah, but you know, you in reality, they're giving you their best.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So faith obviously important to both of us, but you can also see the great power and influence that a coach has over the littlest kids, boys, girls, mm-hmm. band coach. You can ruin them, Todd.
Yeah, you can break their spirit and totally ruin them. And I'm sure. Depends on how many people watch it. There'll be some that say, he ruined me. Never meaning to, but because of maybe being condescending or the will to win games and it burned people's passion out for it. But it was never intentional. I never went in to ever hurt anyone or to try to be that way. It just sometimes it's the attrition of the game of grinding.
And God just makes some people stronger than others, faster than others, bigger than others. They can throw better than others. I could have never been a quarterback.
Yeah. I've seen you throw. Yeah. You're right. You could.
Yeah, no.
But I've watched you hit
I've
people.
Tried.
I've watched you play football and play fullback and linebacker. I could have never did what you did. So now we've had our brother moment of bromance here with.
So college, is there any outstanding experience you want to share about college?
I was sophomore class president. I won the Lindsey Wilson Art Award my sophomore year. Had some accolades there. Only played my freshman year in baseball. Realized that when Ralph Antone hit a 780-foot home run off me at Western off of Keene. I was like, my little 83, 4-mile-an-hour fastball is no good at this level. And I realized it. And I wanted to focus on working and then what was lying ahead. And
do you think that as coaches and as parents, we should be more forthcoming, tell the truth, be honest with kids, to say, look, maybe, this is one of the hardest things for a coach. And everybody's watching this, so they all get to see this. This is one of the hardest
all
things.
6 of you.
Yeah, maybe 7. We got 7 now. Brian's still here. So one of the hardest things that we have to deal with is you don't never want to quail or crush or hurt a child's goals, ambitions, and dreams. But at the same time, they can't all be the starting quarterback. They can't all be on the starting 5 of the offensive linemen. You want them to so bad, and that's real hard for a coach. And every coach out there, this is a hard conversation to have because moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas feel like we're benching so-and-so. Well, it's not that. It is a very difficult line. Do you even want to go there?
I do want to go there. I do. I think I've told people with my middle school experience, I don't think they should cut any kids. I think if we had to have 5 teams, we should have 5 ball teams. How do you find? We get into logistics because I've seen kids blossom that were 4'11". Now I'm going to go on the record here. Nathan Peters, if you're watching, Nathan was 4'11", about 78 pounds. But when he graduated high school, he became a man. There are situations where kids blossom and you just totally cut their little limbs out from under them and tell them there's no place for you. The great thing about football is there's always a place for everybody. Mm-hmm. Baseball, not so much. Basketball, definitely. I mean, that's the one that kills me. Not knocking the basketball people, but 1 ball, 5 people on the court, 13 people in the whole school on the team out of 2. That's a tough one. But back to what you're saying, and I'll be quick. You have to have honesty, and I would tell parents, and excuse me for my logic here. I had a dad one time, he'd come up to me, pat him on the back, and he said, well, Coach Richey, 2 turtles, they don't have a baby cheetah. And I was like, well, never had anybody really tell me that. But, that's a way you have to kind of talk to parents and say, your kid is really good. And they have gotten every ounce of ability they got out of their God-given talent there, but they're not going to D1. Now, we may need to do a better job getting them at D3, NAIA, JUCO. I mean, that's always the thing. But, yes, I believe in honesty. But I don't believe, it's a fine line. I don't believe in cutting them and just killing their whole.
Correct.
Yeah. But I do believe.
So looking back, before we leave this, because we still haven't got out of college yet. Looking back, we're getting ready to take a break. So looking back, what do you tell that kid that is the 6th lineman instead of being in the starting 5? What would you say to that kid?
1 play away. Be ready. We need you. We need you to practice and be as focused as the other 5. We need you to know every position on that line because I promise you, especially at Barron County, you're going to play at some point somewhere because we're thin. Mm-hmm. Now, they're building now. Our Little League's getting better and we're moving. But, I'm going from past experience. They're always going to get a chance to play. And don't give up. But here's the problem. Don't you let me down when it's time to play you and you haven't prepared. Right. There's a test coming. And then the parents want to know. And I'm like, well, there's why your kid don't play. I mean, he comes to practice every day. He's privy to the same information as everyone else. And then when he gets his moment, he's a no-show. And then they, well, I couldn't coach. I should have prepared that kid better. Well, we tried. Was it good enough? Maybe not. But... you asked me.
Those are some of the challenges that come with coaching that I feel like, for the most part, people don't get to see.
I think the greatest thing we could do that's an injustice like in middle school, we tried to play 2 games a week and get to sit, high school is 1 game a week. I think there needs to be a more focus on skill development, skill set development, of taking that kid, what's his GPA? And I call it finger on the pulse, his vital signs. What's his athletic? What's he run the 40 in? What can he bench? What can he squat? What can he deadlift? What's his GPA? What's his interest? Let's throw a dart up on the board. Where could he possibly help us? Where could he go? And then get feedback. Mm-hmm. That needs to be better. And we tried, but sometimes as a coach, you feel like maybe you let some of them down that maybe could have done more if you'd have done more for them.
Right.
Right.
You want to take a break?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Brian, let's take a break.